Okay, good afternoon. First of all, before we're going to start, I just want to ask a question, because we are PLNOG, this is Polish Operator Network Group. I was scheduled in English, but I'm originally Polish. How many of you actually do not speak any Polish? Okay, so we should do it in English. Okay, that's fine. That's not a problem. I was scheduled originally in English, so that's actually fine. Okay, we'll talk about IPv4 transfers. This talk came into my mind basically because of the confusion at the Polish operators about what actually RIPE NCC does with transfer, what is the current status of transfers, how you can transfer allocations, and how you can transfer actually assignments as well. The second part was more about the structure. I mean, what are exactly the details of transfers? So I will start talking about history a little bit, why actually those type of organizations are involved in transfers, where we are currently with IPv4 in our region, so starting, like Europe, Middle East, and parts of Central Asia. And I will finish with exactly how the transfers work in our region. So my name is Andrzej Wolski. I work for RIPE NCC Training Services. Basically, at this role, I deliver trainings, talks about IPv6, routing security, RPKI, and those kind of things. Now, let's start a little bit with history at the beginning. So, if I would ask you, where the IPv4 addresses are coming from, you would say, yeah, in our region, they are coming from RIPE NCC. Some of you might heard about IANA. This is another organization that is involved in those, in the distribution of numeric resources of the internet. But actually, to understand why those organizations are in the place where they are, we have to go a little bit back in the history. In the history, when actually IPv4 was incepted in the global network, so we're talking about the beginning of the 80s. There was always a need for somebody that is trustworthy and can distribute those resources. At the beginning, there was actually one guy. This guy was called John Postel, and he was the person that, if you even connected the network to the ARPANET back then, you have to give a call to John. He worked at UCLA in California. And he said, depending on the network, on the size of the hosts, on number of the hosts that you were about to connect to the network, he was giving you /24 or /16 or /8. We were talking about classful delegations back then. Now, at a certain point, when this network started to grow, and there were other interests in other regions, such as Europe and also in Asia Pacific at the time, John at certain points didn't scale enough. And we needed a bigger framework that we can distribute the addresses. And this is how IANA, Internet Assigned Number Authority, was incepted through the RFC systems of ITF. And the first IANA was actually John Postel, a single person. He was a director of IANA till '98 when he died, and he was called at certain point a god of the internet. Not only because he was distributing numeric resources, but also because of his involvement in the DNS system and other means of internet plumbing. So, IANA was incepted in 1989, and everything that was distributed up to this point was distributed only by John. At this time, as I mentioned already, there was some interest in other regions. In 1989, we also formed a community here in our region. The community was called RIPE, Réseau IP European, and that was an open forum. So that means that anybody can come, say whatever they want, of course, as long as it's in the frames of numeric resources. And those decisions were carried on later throughout the year. Now, with the inception of IANA and the RFCs that actually incepted it, there was a framework designed for global distribution. That was the regional Internet Registry system. So in between the meetings of RIPE, there was a need for somebody to carry the work. So, for example, if the RIPE community decided that they want to distribute IP addresses in this region in this particular way, somebody had to carry this work. And this is how the first regional Internet Registry system has been established, and that was the RIPE NCC, the RIPE Network Coordination Center. We were the first regional Internet Registry. We were quickly followed by Asia Pacific region, and in 1993, there was established APNIC, Asia Pacific Network Information Center. Currently, there is 5 regional Internet registries. We were joined in 97, as far as I remember, by ARIN, 98, and later on by LACNIC in 2001, and the latest one, the addition, was AFRINIC in 2005. So those are the 5 regional registries that distribute resources in their particular region. Behind every of those registries, there is a community, and this community establishes how those resources are being distributed. So in principle, all those organizations, all those 5 organizations are very boring organizations because they don't do anything by themselves. They do whatever their communities decide for them to do. What they do, they change the policies that the community comes with into procedures that are followed in between the meetings. So if you would say that I don't like why RIPE NCC does A or B, you can't come really to the RIPE NCC and have and say that RIPE NCC did something wrong. Actually, whatever we do has been decided by the community. Okay, so who we are? So we are the RIPE NCC. We are located in Amsterdam. We are not-for-profit organization, and we are one of the 5 regional registries. And you have to distinguish the 2 organizations, right? There is a RIPE Network Coordination Center, and there is the RIPE community. RIPE community, it's not an organization. You can't be a member of the RIPE community. Anybody can participate. If somebody from Asia Pacific region, from Japan, or from Caribbean islands want to participate in RIPE community, it can. RIPE NCC is the formal organization. If you want to sue, you can sue only RIPE NCC. And we are the organization that actually hires people to do the distribution of the numeric resources and other things. So what we actually do, right? The first and the most important is distribution of numeric resources. IPv4, IPv6, and AS numbers. Those are the 3 main ones. This is kind of connected with the RIPE database. Everything that we do is being registered in the RIPE database. This is for ensuring uniqueness of the resources. So if we hand over a /20 or /22 to an organization, we register that in the RIPE database, so no other organization will receive the same block. As you know, you all network engineers, 2 organizations having the same IP addresses, that won't work. The second important thing, we support the RIPE community. RIPE community want to establish policies, and we give them the structure to establish those policies. So twice a year, we organize meetings for the RIPE community. Right? The next one is going to be in London next month. Then after the one, there's going to be one in Amsterdam. Addition, we do reverse DNS, and we also manage one of the 13 root servers. If you have IP addresses, you would like to have a reverse DNS, you register that in the RIPE database, and we inject that into root servers. We do also resource certification, the whole known RPKI, and we deliver trainings. Right? I'm part of the training services, so if you are a member of RIPE NCC, you get all those services for free. So if you want to know more, for example, about IPv6 or more about RPKI or routing security, or DNSSEC, you can come as a member to one of our trainings. We do like once a year a training in Poland, and you can get those trainings for free. The only thing that you need to accommodate is actually where to sleep and actually to come to the training. The rest is for free. Everything that we do for our members is for free. The members pay fee to be a member, and that's all. So, how the IPv4 distribution? Because this is the main focus of today. IANA, the Internet Assigned Number Authority, they hold the whole IPv4 space, so a /0, and they distribute that further to the regional internet registries, registries such as RIPE NCC. We received a number of /8s, and those /8s we further divided into smaller pieces, and we distribute that to our members, called a local internet registries. For a long time, the default minimum allocation was a /21, so that means that you couldn't get an allocation which is smaller, even if you don't need a /21. That was in the mind of not trashing completely a global routing table. So you get a bigger block, and we hope that you're going to fill it up with time, and you're going to announce it as a one big prefix. Then later on, you distribute that to your end users. It doesn't matter if it's some kind of broadband when customer gets a single IP address, or is it a bigger organization which receives a bigger block, for example, in Office, which receive a /24 or /23, or sizes like that. Additionally, there was also a possibility of receiving a provider independent space. So that means that you are not a member of RIPE NCC, but you can still receive an address space as an end user directly from RIPE NCC pool. This had to be done anyway through local internet registries, because we as a membership organization, we only talk to our members. So if you had a customer that wanted to have an independent space, they will have to still find an organization, so-called a sponsoring LIR, which will talk on behalf of them with a RIPE NCC. But as we know, the IPv4 space is a fixed size. We're talking about 4.3 billion addresses, where actually a lot of it has been wasted for other means. So with time, we knew that we're going to exhaust this address space to the point where nothing going to be left. So you all seen this picture many times, IANA pool, right? So we received an IPv4 space from IANA. So with time, their pool was slowly exhausting, till the point where they had nothing to distribute. Now, the global community actually recognized this problem. And there was a policy called Global Fairness, which said that if we're going to reach the point where IANA going to have 5 contiguous /8s left, and a new request for another /8 will come from the regional registry, they will distribute to each of the regional registries one of those /8s. So when IANA had a 5 /8s and APNIC back then, in February 2011, came and said, can I have another /8? They said, oh, okay, we're now starting to allocating based on this global fairness policy. They invited every registry to the big gala in Miami and said, here is a /8, here is a /8, /8. We had a nice picture, and it's done. Right? So IANA itself has no longer a contiguous /8s to distribute to the regional internet registries. And that breaks the chain of the distribution. So as we were receiving a /8 from IANA, and you were receiving a fixed size from a RIPE NCC, at this point, we couldn't come back to IANA and said, can we have more? Because they would say, we've got nothing to offer to you. So that means that we started to slowly exhausting our resources, our pool. But our community seen that coming. So they also introduced a policy which said what's going to happen when we're going to reach the level of exhaustion. And we exhausted our resources in September 2014, exactly about 2 years ago. So in our region, you can't come back to the RIPE NCC and ask for IPv4 network based on your needs. You can only get a one prefix. I'll come back what kind of prefix is that. So this chain has been broke. We can no longer receive a /8 from IANA, and you can still receive a part of address space. There is a slight confusion about what exhaustion means. In the meaning of IANA and regional registries, exhaustion means that we reach a certain level. Exhaustion in the meaning of regional internet registries means that we started to allocating from the /8 that we received from IANA in February 2011. That was 185/8. And when that started to happen, everything changed. The distribution completely changed. So at this point, you as a local internet registry can come to the RIPE NCC and receive a one allocation. And one allocation in the size of a /22. Only one per organization. Doesn't matter if it's a new organization and all already established LIR, only a /22, just 1,024 addresses. Now, this address space is a little bit different than the previous address spaces that you received from RIPE NCC, because we envision this space as a transition space. So when you get this /22, you should think about what I've got left in my pool, because you're not going to get anything more. So we see the /22 to be used for transition between IPv4 and IPv6. Still, those are the addresses that are distributed to you guys. You can do whatever you want with them. If you want, you can distribute that to an end user and completely exhaust your resources. That's possible as well. But we strongly recommend to not do that. The other thing that changed is that PI assignments are no longer possible. This last /8 policy said PI no longer, only for operators, only for the local internet registries. So what you can get? You get a /22, but with one remark. The remark is you have to have already an IPv6 allocation. And it's really easy to get an IPv6 allocation. All you have to say is, yes, I want, and yes, I will use it somewhere in the future, possibly within 2 years, but that's all. Right? So it's really easy to get one. Up till now, we've allocated over 4,400 of those address blocks. So if we look at our statistics, how much do we allocate it with time? 4,400, we distribute about 180 a month. And some of them are the first allocation, so a new LIR comes, and he wants to get a piece of the IPv4. And this is what the last /8 was mostly designed for. You are already established LIRs. You have IPv4 space. But what about the guys that are going to come after you? A new operator, a new hosting company. If they would come now and would have no IPv4, you know what kind of, which level actually of deploying IPv6 we are. IPv6, yes. Yes, IPv6 we are. So actually IPv6 is almost not existing, especially on the serving side. Right? So those guys would be stopped to do any business being operator or a hosting company. But we see also a fair number of additional allocations, and those are the organizations that actually already are LIR, and they want to get their last /22 piece. Now, that means that we distribute from this /8 that we have. So we have some kind of pool that we distribute those IPv4 addresses. Now, if you think about it, how many /22s are there in /8? This is about 16,000, right? So not only that we have about 10,000 members, so we have about 6,000 left, but also not all of those members are interested in receiving a /22 because it doesn't solve anything for them. Now, if we look at the pool, it's slowly depleting. But actually, it will last for many years to come. So if you're planning to open, I don't know, an ISP, an operator, in 3 years from now, you will still be eligible to get a /22, and we'll still have something for you. Now, on this graph, you actually see those kind of two steps, right? One is a little bit bigger, and the other one is a little bit smaller. Now, those big jumps, which means that actually our pool grown a little bit, are again coming back to IANA. Now, if you think about 5/8, 5 contiguous /8, those are big blocks. IANA has actually some leftovers here and there. Those leftovers also are being returned slowly to IANA. We're talking about legacy space, organizations which said, we don't need that much, we'll give it back to IANA. IANA had additional policy, a post-exhaustion policy, which said a first regional internet registry, which will hit a /9, will start this policy. And this policy said that we'll get any IP addresses that we have, we're going to put them together in one pool, and when the first /9 will be reached at the regional internet registry, we'll distribute along those 5 regional registries all those pieces. So we received in May a /11 from IANA, and this was triggered by LACNIC. They reached a /9. This is also caused by different policies in different regions. So if you think about a bottom-up approach, so the community says what the organization should do, they have a different interest in the different regions. In our region, we have some kind of soft landing. So you get a /22, and we're slowly depleting, but it will take years to get there. LACNIC and ARIN has a completely different approach. They say, we will distribute the addresses. We will hit the /8, but after that, we're going to do a full overview of the distribution, but we'll distribute more or less as we're supposed to distribute before. So they reached a /9 pretty quickly, and also they have this hard landing. So they will get to the point where they have nothing. And it will come quite soon. This policy said that at the time when the first regional registry hits the /9, IANA will distribute the leftovers every 6 months to all the 5 regional registries. So in September, we receive a /12, a smaller and smaller and smaller blocks, till the point where IANA will not be able to give us anything bigger than a contiguous /24. So next March, we'll receive another network. Is it going to be a /13, /15, /16? It's really hard to say. It depends what IANA will be able to gather. You have also another thing in the graph. It says addresses reserved. Right? So what RIPE NCC does with those addresses. There are 2 policies. One is the last /8 policy, which says, OK, RIPE, put on aside a /16. This /16 will be used for unforeseen situations. So we don't know how the internet will be growing in the future. So we keep the /16 just in case. Now, if we're going to reach complete exhaustion of our pool, we'll release this /16 for further distribution. So it will become a regular pool. The other one is a /13. Which is related to a temporary assignment policy that we have. So you, for example, a PLNOG can come to the RIPE NCC and say, we are building a network for this particular conference, and we need ASN and address space. Or I do a research about IPv4 botnets or something like that, or IPv4 performance for 6 months. Can I receive an allocation for this time to deliver those research? This is possible according to this policy. Now, where we are currently, this is from the last week when I've gathered those information. We have more addresses than we had in September 2012. So we have over a /8. For distributions, we have just below a /8. But that's good. That means that we have time for a new organization to get a piece of IPv4 still. Now, if you need more IPv4 addresses, you've got possible at this point 3 solutions. The first one is very simple, is the mergers and acquisition, right? One company buys another, or they connect. We have a transfer of allocation. You as an organization have an allocation and you want to transfer it to another organization. And a legacy space. And a legacy space is very interesting. And I will dive into each of them. So let's start with the mergers and acquisitions. This is the simplest one, right? One organization buys another. So that means that not only they buy the organization itself, that means also that they buy the customers. So one ISP overtakes another, or 2 ISPs connect together. So their resources are being transferred to this new organization that has been incepted. We need a couple of documents to transfer those resources in between organizations. So we need a merger or purchase agreement to be sure that this actually happened. You know, we are not a police. We are not Europol. We're not a cyber police. We have to believe to whatever you say to us. The whole system is built on trust. We need company registration from both parties, that they actually exist and there are not poles in the middle of nothing. And if any of those organizations had a provider-independent space, because it's also possible to receive a provider-independent space 2 years before, and for your own organization, we need to sign a new agreement between a RIPE NCC and this new organization. This is required by another policy which was called 2007-01. If you're interested in details, there is a RIPE document, RIPE 5995. Every policy document that has been established by the RIPE community is called RIPE and the number of document, in the same ways as RFCs are. Now, the second part is the transfer of allocation, and we have a transfer policy. So this is only possible between LIRs. Why between LIRs? Because those are the only ones that have actually an allocation, right? Other organizations have assignments. An allocation is a block of IP addresses for further use. It's not for used by the organization. If you want to use a part of the addresses in allocation, you create so-called assignments. Transfers can be permanent or temporary. It depends on the situation. You can transfer to another organization for half a year or undetermined, but it's still temporary, so that means that you are still in control. But be aware that we have another policy about being transparent, that any transfers that we do, we publish on our website. So you can go through all the transfers that happened throughout the last 2 years. We need just a couple of documents. We need a transfer agreement that says, okay, I accept that I will transfer from this organization to this organization. I understand what a RIPE NCC does. And we need a company registration to see that those organizations actually exist. Again, this is based on the community policies. So this is a RIPE 622 document, and you can read it through on the section 5.5. It's very short. It has a couple of sentences, actually. So for transfers or allocations, we understand that it's a little bit confusing, so we also created a transfer listing service. Transfer listing service is like a service for connecting the ones that want to offer an address space and those that actually want to transfer an address space to them. You can offer an address space, you can request an address space. But you see already that IPv4 addresses have some value. The value comes from the need. Right? There's more addresses that are actually needed than the addresses are offered. Again, this is a number from last week. We had 874,000 addresses requested, offered, but we had over 40 million IP addresses requested. So there is quite a bit difference. Now, what we are just connecting those who offered and those who request. We are not interested how you're going to transfer them. Do you want to transfer just for KISS? Do you want to transfer for a tables, as Brocade sold their IPv4 addresses to Microsoft? Or it's real money involved. We don't care. We are the registry. We don't care about the transaction itself. We are interested who's the current holder. And this is what for this system has been built. So it's part of the LIRPortal. If you log into your LIRPortal, it's there in the resources on the very bottom. You can click on it. You can see what is there on transfer, who can you contact, and what are the organizations that actually requested IPv4 space if you want to offer one. There are no information about what are the requirements for transfer. It just says this is the contact, and that's it. Putting address space and offering address space is very easy. You just say, okay, I've got this particular address space, and I would like, you don't have to even put the whole allocation on transfer. You can just put pieces of it. So if I would like, I can put a /23 from a /21. And another way around, you can say I want a /20 and I want it permanently, for example. It's very easy. Now, how many transfers did we do till now? Quite a bit. I mean, as you see, and as the value of IPv4 addresses is growing, we see also a steep need for IPv4 and actually transfers. So at the beginning, I don't remember exactly when we did the first transfers, but we didn't do it on September 2012. They came a little bit later on till everybody realized actually what is happening. So looking at the statistic from last year, so August 2014 versus August 2014, you see a sudden grow in the number of those transfers. Last month, we did almost 100 transfers between our members. And again, the transfers of allocation is only between the local internet registries. If you had found an organization or a person that is willing to transfer address space, for example, from America, you can't do it. They are not an LIR, and there is actually no policy established for ARIN to transfer those address spaces to the RIPE region. So it's only within our region. As you saw on the picture, starting from Greenland, the whole Europe, Middle East, Central Asia. Right? So Russia and the former Soviet republics. Okay, so what about legacy space? What is the legacy space? Legacy space is everything that has been distributed to entities before the registry system has been put in place. So if you receive an address space from RIPE NCC, there are certain rules which you have to follow. If you stop being LIR, you have to return those resources back to the pool of RIPE NCC. And everything that is put back to the pool, it's actually not given back to IANA, but goes to the pool that is for the further distribution years to come. But this legacy space, because it was allocated or assigned actually to the entities before the registry system has been put in place, they are actually outside the system. All the rules that LIRs or anybody that received from the from regional internet registry address spaces, they don't have to play those rules. They can do whatever they want with this address space. You can say in some ways that they are the owners of their own address space. And that means that any rules that are there, they don't have to obey them. Right? So you can transfer a legacy space from a different region here to Poland, and there's nothing that stops it because the legacy space is not under the policy of the regional registries. But that caused actually a problem, because we cannot say for 100% that whoever puts on the transfer this address space is actually the holder of them. We don't have a contract with those guys. We don't know exactly that they are actually who they say they are. Right? So that causes problems. And we're seeing those problems even in our region. Somebody sold somebody an /16, but he wasn't a holder of this /16. He just took the money and ran away. Right? So we have actually a policy for establishing contact with legacy holders, so they can bring this legacy space, even with the status of legacy, to the RIPE NCC, and we can recognize them as a holder. And we can support the process of transferring legacy space, because the legacy space still needs to be registered in the RIPE database. So if you're transferring a legacy space from organization A to organization B, you have to contact RIPE NCC because we need to change a maintainer in the RIPE database. And without it, you will have a little bit of problem of routing because you can't create a route object and your prefixes, your announcements might be dropped here and there. It basically won't work very well. If you need any support about legacy, just contact legacy at ripe.net. We will help you. Do it before you're going to acquire the space to be sure that they are who they are. So there are also brokers, organizations such as which will facilitate the process of transferring and establishing who's the seller and who's the buyer. So they will facilitate the process of the transfer. We understand that those organizations exist, and we've created agreement and kind of understanding of the policies. So we have a list of brokers which are listed on our website, and they sign a contract, contract agreement, which says, yes, we understand what RIPE and RIPE NCC stands for. We'll follow the RIPE policies and RIPE NCC procedures. So if you're dealing with a broker, you can go through the RIPE NCC webpage, ripe.net, and find, do those guys sign the contract, so at least you know that they are trustworthy and they do not care only about the money, but they actually understand the process. But those brokers, they are not part of the RIPE NCC, they are not endorsed by us, and they do not act on behalf of them, on behalf of the RIPE NCC. They are just organizations which facilitate them. So where we stand with this whole transfers, we want to make sure, we know that we can't stop it. We want to be sure that they follow the RIPE NCC, RIPE policies. So if you transfer, the policy is still followed. We are here for our members. We want to help our members, so we support and help with this transfer process. And we want to protect your resources. So if somebody wants to transfer, they are not transferring an address space from organizations that actually do not want to do that. And hijacks are happening, and are happening quite often. Did any of you actually has been hijacked? Okay, not in this crowd, but it happens quite often, almost on a daily basis. So our ultimate goal is to keep the registry. Keep the registry up to date. We are the regional internet registry. What we care, who's the current holder, so that when you're going to the RIPE database, you can be sure about the data that it's there if you want to contact the other side. So there's increased risk of hijacks. They become, addresses become more vulnerable. And what we see that criminals will do whatever it takes to acquire address space. We've seen everything that is possible, faking everything that is there. Registration, stamps, signatures, even the whole organization, websites, and everything has been put in place just to hide that this address space actually do not belong to the person that is willing to transfer it. And that means that we spend more time on transfers. If you're going to be transferring address space somewhere in the future, you have to excuse us. We do a thorough check. We ask for a lot of documents just to be sure that both sides actually exist. So please cooperate as possible. Now, if you need help with acquiring resources, for example, you don't know how the process works, or you would like to have a recognition of the seller or the buyer, you can just contact them and say, guys, what do you know about this organization, how we should go on with it, how we can be sure that the address space will land at our organization, and everything is going to be okie-dokie. Okay, so everything is about policies. So what is happening in the policy world, so in the RIPE community? Regarding transfers, there are two policies that are there currently. So there's 2014-05, and this is a policy which will establish a framework for transferring address space in between registries. So when this policy will get accepted and implemented by RIPE NCC, you can transfer, for example, from RIN or IPNIC. You have to understand that other regional registries have to have similar policies. IPNIC and RIN, they do. AFRINIC and LACNIC don't. So you can't, from AFRINIC or LACNIC, transfer to a RIPE region, but possibly you will be able to transfer from RIN and IPNIC. Still, they need to be compatible. Having an inter-RIR transfer policy doesn't mean that you actually can transfer. They need to be compatible. The other one is 2014-02, and this has been accepted last Thursday, and it will be implemented by RIPE NCC soon. This will allow PI transfer. So provider independent space will be transferable as well from company A to company B. So that's a good news also in to consolidate this address space. Now, if you don't like any of those things or you think you have a better idea, we have, of course, a BTP process to bring the policies from the RIPE community to RIPE NCC. So get your voice heard, participate. If you have any ideas, new things that you would like to implement as a policy or change any of the policies that you have, contact us at pdr@ripe.net and we'll help you to make this thing happen, or at least start the discussion. Because your idea might not generally have an interest in our region. You not only have to convince yourself that you need this change, but you also have to convince other community members in, if it means transfer policy, in the address working group. So that's it for now. If you have any questions, we have a couple of minutes. If don't, you can get me in the hall or in the after party, and I can help you with any further questions that you might have.
Okay, if there's no questions, then thank you for your speech.
You are welcome.